Right.
You look in the cameras and then see like half the seats are empty. Like simple things where, reality is different than the things that he is claiming they are. So like this kind of disconnect with reality that he often has, and it's like related to his ego. Like it's one thing if he has like a different opinion. Okay, having a different opinion is fine, but having a different version of reality is completely unacceptable. You can't be, going off and saying things that are completely contradicting the reality of things, because then you're going to have people that are very confused. And if you're going to be claiming to be, the tallest president, the best, most healthy president, but in reality you're lying on your own weight and height when you get arrested. It's like my dude is saying he's 6'3" and he's 200 pounds. I'm 6'1" and I'm 200 pounds, and I have a little bit of a gut. My guy is definitely more than 200 pounds. Like,
Mhm.
and so, little things like that. It's like if you lie about little things, you're gonna lie about big things. That's just how it works. If you have the audacity to lie about some things that are plain to the eye that you can see, then you're gonna lie about things that are harder to determine to be true or not. So that makes me question his integrity and judgment and overall like capacity to lead if you're just lying blatantly about things that you can check and verify to be true or not. And even when he gets checked, he still continues with the lie. So it's just like my dude is delusional. Like, yeah, maybe he's got more cognitive ability than Joe Biden, but at least like I haven't caught Joe Biden in bold-faced lies over and over again that, he repeats and continues to repeat despite like being corrected and, being able
So,
to get corrected very easily.
okay, so I just want to understand completely. Your point is that Trump sometimes speaks where he's separated from reality. Some of the things that he says can obviously be checked, and obviously you can see with your eyes that these things aren't true.
Right.
And that if these little things that he's lying about are so easy for him to lie about,
Yeah, if they're
is
so
everything
easy to
okay?
lie about, then of course it's going to be easier to lie about things that are harder to determine whether it's true or false, like to fact check. Like when you're coming to like military intelligence, when you're talking about, some things that are like classified and you have limited information access to, then of course he can get away with lying there much more easily. And that makes it more difficult to check him and to really make sure that he's being honest with the public. So,
Okay.
little things like that. And then there are major things too, obviously, like, threatening to pull funding out of Ukraine that was already approved by Congress, in a phone call to Zelensky claiming that he needs to find some dirt on his competitor in order to, get this money, which has already been approved by Congress to be received by Ukraine. So like the issues are really like about him as a person. Like the things he does are not conducive to, I think, what would be good leadership. Good leadership is, being able to tell the truth and to motivate people to rise to the occasion when it's difficult, when times are tough. And like, yeah, he rallies people, but for all the wrong reasons. And I'm not saying like all the things he says are completely based on like lies or have no real like relevance to the American people. Of course, like he points out things that have relevance because he needs to in order to rally his base and to rally the people around him. but then he also makes lies a lot about things that, you know, some things are not important, but other things they are. They have major implications, like foreign policy. And
Okay, so let me ask you just to compare and contrast, right?
mm,
We have Trump. You gave an example of clearly he's weighing more than 200 pounds. This is like one of the small things, but I'll just use it as an example, right?
yeah,
Where you can obviously see that he weighs more than that, right? And it makes you question his honesty in leading the country and his ability to lead the country honestly because of small things like that. Contrast it to the Democratic Party, who tells you that Joe Biden is cognitively capable of running the country, where we can obviously see that that is not true.
yeah.
And
And a lot
this
of Democrats,
directly,
they pointed that out too.
right?
That's why he
And
stepped down.
this directly relates to um, to him leading the country. Except the problem is he did not step down. He stepped out of the next election. He's running the country now,
Oh
right?
yeah, of course. Uh-huh.
Right. And not only is he running the country now, but the person who's planning on running the country next was part of the lie and is still part of the lie. So
What's the
to
lie though? You
contrast,
mean the
the
cover
lie
up for
is
his
that
health?
Joe Budden is not just a cover up, right? A cover up is you're hiding something. A lie is you're telling me something that's not true, right? They're telling us that he is mentally capable to run this country. Right? They're telling us that while we're in the midst of many wars, who he doesn't remember the names of the people who he's in the wars with. Right? That he did that on national stage in front of the people. He forgot their names. He mixed them
Yeah,
up.
that was very embarrassing for
Right?
sure.
Embarrassing, dangerous. I don't worry
Yes,
about being
that too.
embarrassed. I worry about the danger of it. The fact that we have our enemies floating on our borders shortly after that mistake.
Right, I agree. And
Right?
then the other
So
issues that I could point out about Trump are, for instance, like his provocative nature. Right, he's often like bullying and harassing people, either even other world leaders. Like, you know,
mhm,
he's kind of he supposedly had the least amount of wars under his belt during his presidency, but in reality,
mhm,
he's been also alienating a lot of our allies in NATO, a lot of people, you know, foreign leaders that you know, we were trying to make a better relationship with. Even our enemies, like Kim Jong Un, calling him Rocket Man, making fun of him, and like, you know, Xi Jinping, who is also another leader, but also coloring up with like Putin and saying good things about him, and so picking and choosing some of these leaders, which he seems to see favorably for some reason. So you know, he even said Xi Jinping is a very special person, and like, you know, has admired his leadership in some ways. So it's like, you know, it's confusing to people when he goes around and starts making trouble with his allies, and then, you know, cuddling up closely
so
to his enemies.
my question is, are people confused because he's doing something wrong, or is are people confused because he's doing something opposite of what they're used to seeing? What I mean is that the United States government has not been working in benefit of the people for many, many decades, which is the reason why Trump was elected president in the first place,
Yeah,
right? His
agreed.
specific election was to go against everything that the United States was previously doing. So when he came in office and began going opposite of all of the things that we considered quid pro quo, and then we proceeded to elect Joe Biden and remove him from office and go back to quid pro quo, and we see the results of doing that, I would like to know, it's not about predicting what he may or may not do. It's about looking at his history now. See, the first time there was no political history to look at.
Yeah,
Now it's time to
now we
look
have
at
plenty.
the track record of the candidates and
Yeah,
see what they did in office.
yeah,
And
let's do that.
my question is, in all of those things that you named as things that made you a little bit uncomfortable, what were the results? You named the fact that there were the least wars under any presidential in history as a result of his antagonizing our enemies and alienating our allies. That's what you listed. So my point is maybe kissing up to our allies and and kissing up to our enemies has not been beneficial because millions of American lives have been lost in every presidency except for Trump's.
I'd have to fact check exactly how true that is, but yeah, that's what I've been hearing, that supposedly he's had the least amount of wars under his belt during the presidency.
Well, I can tell you, we've definitely had the least amount of soldiers um, put into new wars on and new battle activities under his presidency, right?
And that is a good thing, granted, at the same time, there are other issues too. For instance, the fact that like he himself promoted and spearheaded the vaccine development, but then went out to say, "Oh, don't take the vaccine, it's bad for you." It's like contradicting his own initiative. Like he created the
Hmm.
team that made that vaccine happen as quickly as it did, and he took credit for making it
Yes.
happen, but then he goes
Hmm.
and says, "Oh, don't take it." Like what sense does that make? Or he says,
I
no, just
think
inject bleach into your body, or just let sunlight hit the virus. It'll kill it instantaneously. It's like, yeah, so you gotta allow all your blood to gush out, and then come back into your body after hitting the sunlight. Like my guy has no scientific understanding of the world.
well,
He's just a
let me
big
ask you a
con man.
question. Let me ask you a question. If he spearheaded the vaccination coming as fast as it did, faster than any other vaccination in history of science,
Yeah,
right? From development to the public. If he did that, and then he said sunlight and bleach, and this is the same person who did that and said that. Why do you choose to throw one out because it sounds ridiculous to you? Why not say to yourself that the same people who allowed him to spearhead the vaccine in record time are the same people that told him that sunlight and bleach um, have some valid applications to the COVID disease.
yeah, it does, but not to your body. You can't apply bleach into your body and hope it kills the vaccine in isolation. It's gonna kill you before it helps you. And same
So
with
we,
sunlight. You can't expose all your body parts to sunlight. Like it's impossible.
some people would say the same thing about radiation, but we have chemotherapy that we administer to people daily.
Well, radiation in small doses, when it's like
Hmm.
targeting certain areas, can be used to kill some cells, but it will also kill other things as well. That's why you have to be very
Well,
careful with it.
how many times have you swallowed water in a swimming pool?
Probably a few dozen times at least.
All right. Well, then drinking bleach never hurt you, did it?
I don't know that for a fact. It could have hurt
Well,
me, but I don't know. I haven't recorded that harm.
what I'm saying is, what is so easily portrayed by the media to the people as ridiculous is really people in the know making people who are not in the know puppets. We don't know. And we're saying that somebody with presidential level information is the idiot. And we're letting the people who don't have that level information tell us that he's the idiot when he's coming up with the solutions.
I don't know if he really has come up with any significant solutions. Like, even when it comes to housing, like he did nothing to help us for housing, to improve the housing market. What did he do? Like what can you point to
Well,
that he's done except give tax breaks to their wealthy people that he is
I
in
can
cahoots with?
say that during Trump's presidency, I know personally more people that were house shopping looking for houses all over the market, and the prices were going down, and they were holding on to their money, watching the prices going down, hoping that they would go down more. Then what happened is we were hit with
During the
COVID.
pandemic, right?
Yeah,
Or
no,
before?
this is before the pandemic. The pandemic actually started making prices go back up. So people
Oh.
held their money because the pandemic had the traveling restrictions and all of that happening. And then during the course of the pandemic, the prices of houses started going back up. Biden came into office, and then the housing market is what it is now, where houses are actually double almost the price that they were under Trump presidency.
The one thing I will give Trump is that oil prices were low under his presidency, which is probably because the Democrats are trying to like kind of get us away from fossil fuels, and by doing that, has inadvertently caused the price of oil to go up, and for us to
Here's the
suffer as
thing about the
consumers.
inadvertent thing, right? And I love that we're having this conversation because I would like to really address the ego of us, the layman. Inadvertent is something for people who are not educated enough in the field to know what would happen when you remove oil, or when you increase energy production, or when you stray away from fossil fuels. That's inadvertent. Negligence is what happens when you do know and you ignore it, or you do nothing about it.
I agree.
And maliciousness is when you do know and you don't care, so you do it anyway in order to harm someone. So as long as we're talking about people who understand economies, understand energy, we cannot say that they inadvertently did anything, right? They looked at all of these things. They looked at charts, they looked at graphs, they analyzed, and they came up with a justifiable amount of loss for the goal that they wanted to achieve. They looked at the losses and they said the losses were adequate, they were okay to them, and the benefit that they see was much better than the losses, and they went forward with that. And that's an optimistic view of what they did. Pessimistic view is they were just trying to destroy the country. But the optimistic view is through all of the analysis, they saw that they would take some losses, but the future would be better than the losses, right? It would be the storm before the quiet, in proverbial terms, for lack of better words, right? So did they maliciously destroy the market, or did they negligently destroy the market? Is the question.
I mean, I'm sure that there was some negligence there. I wouldn't say malice is a part of it. I
Okay.
would say maybe they what they did was they didn't understand the effect it would have, or care to really mitigate the effect it would have on the common man and the regular American people, because they have so much money, they don't have to worry about the cost of gas going up a couple bucks a gallon.
Do
You
you
know,
know the immediate effect of oil going up to
well,
a
the
country, to
cost
any
of
economy?
households bills go up. You just regular everyday tasks like cooking, driving to work, commuting. All the things that require gasoline, which is pretty much the entire infrastructure, at least for now.
So basically, when you increase the cost of oil, you create
Inflation.
artificial inflation, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's one contributing factor for sure.
Right.
Yes.
So let's be clear again. Are we talking about inadvertent people who did not have the knowledge? Are we talking about people who understand this, who actually caused inflation?
It's hard to say. Like even in law, you can't prove like intent very easily. You really need quite a bit of evidence to show what someone's intent was. Like a lot of like circumstantial evidence here. But we're limited as to what we can access, because like a lot of things are hidden behind closed doors. So I won't say with certainty that there was malice, or we could say with some level of certainty that there was at least some negligence, at the very least. Like
Okay.
that much I can agree on. But
Okay.
there's also some negligence when it comes to Trump and his actions. We could look at
Okay.
him and see what he's done. Like you want to point out his record, so let's see what his record has to say for him, right? Like
Right.
he has multiple times aided the rich over the poor. Like he cares more about giving like tax cuts to the wealthy and the corporations than he does to regular people.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I would love to see everyone succeed, right? But like largely he's helped the people in power more than he's helped the regular human, the regular man, the people that we refer to as the common person. Like it's not like he's going out there and like helping people with getting better job opportunities. Like you can claim like, yeah, he had good record and unemployment rate, but the unemployment rate is also a figure that doesn't reflect accurately what's going on. A lot of people that don't even, they just stop trying, They're not counting them towards unemployment. There's a lot of people that just stop trying. They live in with their families or whatever. They have like 5 people living in the same household, 7, 8 people living in the same household, and some of those people are not part of the labor force, and because they're not part of it,
Right.
they're not counted towards unemployment. So like if some of those people in the household are doing really well, they can afford to like sustain the couple of people who aren't doing well, and they can't be part of the labor force because they have all this debt, all the college degrees. They think they're overqualified. They turn them away, and then they have to go to like a really shitty job. And like if they work too much and they get too much money, welfare comes in and says, "Oh, you can't have any more benefits." So like the incentive is to stay impoverished.
Right.
I do
I agree
agree
with you.
that I agree that welfare can have it's a two-edged sword. It's a negative thing to some people because they don't use it to help them get out of a shitty situation. They use it as a crutch, and that also depends on us culturally to I recognize the purpose of welfare is to help us in times of need and not to use constantly as a way to kind of game the system. There's a lot of this happening, gaming the system to our benefit, and it's not just poor people. Obviously, rich people are gaming the system with their what they call them tax breaks and subsidization of different industries. They're getting plenty of benefits from the government too. So
Yeah.
we're thinking welfare is like only for the poor, but there's corporate welfare too. A lot of
Well,
corporations benefiting from it.
what I'll say to that is when you truly understand that this is a capitalist society and you understand the economical structure of America, then you'll understand it's not that one candidate or another is catering to the rich and not catering to the poor. Is that in this country or in anywhere in the world, it's a principle that if you're poor, life is harder for you, right? What do I mean by that? If you were a person and you went to the store and you wanted to buy some soap, you would pay whatever the price it is for a bar. If you had a little bit of money and you wanted to get a case of soap, the price would go down a little bit.
Yeah,
Now, if you got a little bit more money and you wanted to buy a box of cases of soap, the price would go down more. And as you became a business owner and you went to a wholesaler to get case loads of cases of soaps, the price would go down even more. The more money you have, the lower the price of the things that you purchase. Let's go to another field. Let's say we went into the financial arena. I walked into a bank and I said, give me a loan. They'd ask me how much money I make. When I told them how much money I make, once they evaluated and calculated what type of risk I was based on my financial status, they would give me a loan with an interest rate that coincides with the risk that I am, meaning that the less money I have, the higher interest rate that I have. The less money I have, the more money I would have to pay back to the bank for every loan. The more money I have, the lower my interest rate, meaning the more money I have, the less money I have to pay back to the bank for the loan. So if I borrow $100 from the bank, if I'm poor, I'm gonna have to pay them back $180. If I borrow $100 from the bank and I'm rich, I have to pay them back $110. And that
yeah,
goes to every aspect of life in this country.
and that's
So,
only further impoverishing the poor and enriching the rich, creating a even
well,
farther gap.
you have to understand that would you give a, a better deal to someone who can afford to pay you, or would you give a better deal to someone who can't? Would you ensure that the person who can't, although you're still giving them the opportunity to open a business or to buy a home or to buy a car, you're still providing them the opportunity. You're not telling them they can't. But what you're telling them is that while you're paying this interest off, my risk for loss is going down because I'm collecting more money from you up front in the interest, right? Once I collect all of that on the interest, my risk now has been protected, but you still have to pay my money in the capital, right? Because you haven't done or are not at the point where I'm as comfortable as I could be by giving you this opportunity. Right? We have to remember that the reason why these things are the reason why people come to this country is for these things that we take for granted. These are opportunities. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. There are some reasons for interest rates being higher for the poor and lower for the rich. And there is a risk mitigation that takes place in these industries, banking, just like any other industry, any business. The thing is, though, we got this candidate that claims to be for the people, but he's been born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He claims he made himself. Yeah, he's a self-made billionaire, but in reality, he got over $100 million in loans from his father, and like tax-free, no less. He claims all these things about himself that are just simply false on its face. And granted, the oil went down, and that's great. That's great for everybody except for the environment ultimately, because
Hmm.
that's where we live and we have to breathe and like
I'm heading up. Hmm.
all right. Oh, did you want to cut it out, or do you want
No,
to
no,
keep going?
continue, continue.
Yeah, so ultimately it really has an effect on the poor as well. When you think about like all the poor people that are going to have to suffer the consequences of global climate change, it's going to be mostly them that suffer because of the fact that they can't just relocate from the coast. If they have a home that's already near the ocean and the sea levels are rising at a faster pace, or that there's hurricanes hitting the town harder, they're not going to be able to move and like buy another house somewhere conveniently inland away from the places that are being affected the most by global climate change. They're going to have to suffer the consequences of those increasing changes because they have less money to deal with. And so it really puts all the blame, all the responsibility on the shoulders of the poor. This country's economy is built on the working class. It's not built on the shoulders of billionaires. They use the working class to get the things done that they want to be done. But in,
Well,
in reality, they can't get it done without us.
I think we disagree there. I think we disagree that the economy is built on the shoulders of the working class. I think the working class are are key to this economy, meaning that this economy would not be able to function without the working class at this point. Soon enough, the working class will be able to be replaced with AI and robots and all that other
I
stuff.
agree,
So,
and that's a big
so,
concern.
so the reality is that the working class was never necessary to make this economy. They were a tool to make this economy, right? They were not the creators nor the builders of this economy. This economy was built by the multi millionaires, the monopolists, the industrialists, the oligarchs of the world, right? This company that we call a country that has a CEO running it was made by countries, not by people, right? They set countries sent embassies and emissaries to this land to create an industry, right? That bases all the dollars and all of the world markets and all of the world military is centralized here, right? The
Right.
reality that we as people feel like this is democracy is not real. The word democracy is not in our constitution. The word republic is in our constitution.
Yeah, constitutional republic or
That's
representative republic. Yeah.
That's right. So the people aren't the entity of this government. It's actually the industries. That's why it's a capitalist society. It's not a society based upon the people, right? It's based upon the businesses, right? Without the Rockefellers, there'd be no America. There'd be no railroads. There'd be, you know,
Oh,
with,
just the same. Without the people who built the railroads, they wouldn't have existed either. So it really goes both ways. But ultimately, a lot of people think that these CEOs deserve the money, but it's like, yeah, maybe they deserve some of the gains from the profit that is made. But ultimately, they make far more, grossly more, hundreds of times more than the average worker, and they don't produce hundreds of times more value for the company. So in reality, it's grossly disproportional to the actual value they produce. We as workers have value as well, but we're not being incentivized by the growth of the company and the products that we are producing and the values and the services that we are providing.
see,
If we
here's where I
were
disagree
being
again.
given that,
I
it's
still,
different.
I, I still have to disagree with you there about the upper echelon management of a company not providing the amount of value to the company that the workers do. I think that is a gross misunderstanding of business, right? If I worked at a Whole Foods or a McDonald's and I sold somebody $3 hamburgers or $5 fruits over the counter, I don't think that I'm providing as much value to the company as the person who contracted the deal to supply food to the Olympics or to Wimbledon or tennis, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
How you doing, So I think that the people who make those deals, the person who sits at the desk at the Hilton or the Marriott, and registers someone in, I don't think is bringing as much value as the person that contracts the New York Knicks to stay at the hotel, or the Houston Rockets, or the rest of the NFL teams to stay at the hotel. Right? That's happening on way higher of a level than the average worker even understands or comprehends. And I don't think the businesses would be able to function if they were selling things, or if they were dependent on the register to make money, right? And I think that separates the difference between small black businesses, small white businesses, small minority businesses, and major companies. Because major companies understand the value of the structure of the business to take it to that next level. Um, we in this country, um, we value people's emotions as of late. It used to be a time in a capitalist society where we valued the wealth of the country and the strength of the country globally, right? Um, that has fallen in the last 4 years. I don't take any sides in the argument for the LGBT community. I think all people should be able to do what they want freely and happily. Um, but the agenda that America has pushed globally through President Biden in order to force different countries to be more accepting to that LGBTQ standpoint and views and lifestyle has cost America significantly
I agree
in
that it's
terms
doing
of
more harm than
change,
good in a lot of ways.
right? And this is a Democrat agenda. It's not the Trump agenda. The Trump agenda is actually completely opposite to that. Um, but for us to right now be losing the standard of the American dollar around the world, for majority of African countries around the world to be stepping away from the American dollar and trying to make deals with Russia in order to unite their dollar and their financial basis with our enemy, I think is far more damaging than Trump saying that I don't think I saw Putin do anything wrong, or whatever it is he said about Putin. I think it was far more revealing that as soon as Biden got in the office, Putin ran into Ukraine. I think it's far more revealing that when Obama was in office, Putin went into Ukraine. And it's far more revealing that under the 4 years of Trump, Putin didn't make a move, right? I think it's far more revealing that now that Biden has stepped down from the next election, that Putin is now surrounding our borders with military vehicles and weaponry. I think the status of America in the world has been diminished to a point that I don't quite remember it's ever been. I don't think I remember a time where on American soil we were ever concerned with any other country. And I think the ego and the bravado of other countries have increased under this presidency. You know, all of the things that we were told that Trump would do to us on a global scale, on a global level, Biden has been guilty of subjecting this country to. That's
So
honestly my.
just so you know,
I left my headphones.
yeah, yeah.
I always leave something.
Yeah, but I think that there are a lot of things like you point out that he has contributed to that are beneficial to American people overall. But at the same time, there's just too many things that I can't stand by and allow for him to continue being emboldened with, like the fact that, like, for instance, he clearly paid off Stormy Daniels to be quiet about prostituting herself to him, And like, yeah, granted, it's not a
Yes.
big crime. I don't think prostitution should be a crime per se,
Hmm.
but like, there should be definitely some regulations around it to prevent, women and like prostitutes and others who are involved in the industry from getting harmed and causing harm to others and society at large. But
Uh-huh.
I do think that him paying using campaign finance money to pay off his lawyer, who also paid off the the prostitute Stormy Daniels for the purpose of
Hmm.
like keeping that quiet is wrong. I mean, should it be illegal? I don't know. That's debatable. But is it illegal? It is. It is illegal, and it has been proven in the court of law. And the court of law, criminal court, is actually a pretty high standard, beyond a reasonable
So
doubt. And if the jury really felt that he wasn't guilty, they could have voted to like reject that claim. The
let me
jury
ask
actually
you
doesn't
a
have to
couple
align with the
questions
law.
about that. Let's just bat that around a little bit. Just a couple things with that story, right? Stormy Daniels comes to Trump during his presidency. Now, Stormy Daniels and Trump had been together years ago, right? Years before the presidential election. It wasn't something recent. But when he decided to run for office, because it was during the time that he was still with Melania, she came and made this threat of coming forward with this information with the expectation to be paid.
Yeah, I
Is
think
that
she definitely
called
has money interests for sure.
okay? So is that called extortion, and is that a crime?
I think she has some crimes that she could be held accountable for too as well. But that does that somehow
Okay,
negate the crimes he's committed
no,
because she's
absolutely
committed
not.
crimes?
No, 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 absolutely not. I just want to establish what we're dealing with here. First, we're dealing with a man being extorted for a woman by a woman for something that he's not done anything wrong. And we agree that him sleeping with Stormy Daniels is not anything wrong.
Well, I mean, morally for the Christians, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but we're
coming out of the marriage, and it's also
that's
prostitution, which
it's
is
just a
illegal.
it's not prostitution. He wasn't charged with prostitution for anything he did with Stormy Daniels.
No,
He
because they
slept.
couldn't necessarily prove that they
No,
had
they could.
sex per se.
They
They
could
could
if
prove
he
how did
said
they
he never
prove?
had sex with her.
Right, exactly. He claimed he never had sex with her, but he didn't have the ability to deny the claims that he paid to silence her with campaign
Yes.
finance money.
So
And
again,
that was
again,
done through the middleman Cohen, who another question is like, if he's really such a loyal guy to his friends and followers, why is it he threw Cohen under the bus and didn't like help him in any way? And now he had to flip and say, what, Trump
so
is a
well,
terrible person.
let's break it down because memory, either memory or lack of information on the Democratic side, is so strong here. So let's break it down because I do remember this. Michael Cohen is a dirty dealing lawyer, right? He's
Right.
been a dirty dealing lawyer. He's what you call a handler, right? His job is to make ugly situations look really pretty and smell like roses. However, he does it. His job is also not to inform his clients of his dirty dealings so that they can have plausible deniability. We agree?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so now Donald Trump gets into a situation with a young lady. Whether he slept with her or not, we don't know, but I'll go with it doesn't matter at this time. The situation arises and this woman needs to be paid off. So he contacts his lawyer. His lawyer handles the situation. For some reason, in this case, we're ignoring Donald Trump's plausible deniability of what Cohen was doing. All right. Okay, let's skip past that. Cohen takes the money. Cohen pays the lady. Cohen disguises it in the way that he disguises it and does all of these things. And then he takes all of this information and he locks it up in his safe. At this time, Donald Trump and all of his friends are under FBI attack from the government because, well, I won't say because why. I think it's because they didn't like him, right? But maybe they were doing misdeeds and they decided only to attack the Republican president and his party and his cabinet, whatever. But Donald Trump's entire cabinet and all his friends were under investigation. And the primary target of all of this investigation became Michael Cohen, where the The feds raided his home, kicked in his door in the middle of the night without giving him proper warning, as they do people of that level and that status. They came in, they kicked his door in, they cracked the safe open, and they took all of the documents. At which point, Michael Cohen became state's evidence testifying against his client, Donald Trump. Do we agree so far on the events
On the
and how
premise
they
here
happened?
that occurred because he was basically betrayed by Cohen, and then
I,
the case
I don't
went
think
through.
betray. I think betrayal is the wrong word. I think he was provided with um, justifiably inadequate legal services, and Cohen should lose his bar, which I'm sure he has for a different reason. But he should possibly be jailed
Well,
for
yeah,
the
he
fact.
was jailed. Cohen was
No,
jailed,
but he
man.
wasn't jailed for providing for doing what is the word, for his legal services to Trump, right? The things that Trump is accused of doing, Trump actually didn't do any of it. The person who did it all was Michael Cohen. Can we be clear that Donald Trump actually did nothing? Right?
Um,
The person,
well,
the
yeah, I guess
person,
like he ordered
he didn't
his
pay Stormy
lackey to
Daniels.
pay her off.
No, 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 no. His lawyer is his legal advisor. Ordered his lackey or took legal advice from his lackey. That's where the question mark is, right? His lawyer is his legal advisor. Even if Donald Trump orders his lawyer to do something, his lawyer is supposed to find the legal way in order to accomplish the goal. His lawyer should not then go and commit a crime and blame his client for telling him to break the law. His lawyer is obligated to the bar, not to his client as far as the law is concerned. Again,
Hmm.
I'm not trying to make excuses here, but I'm saying if I hire a lawyer and then my lawyer goes and commits crimes on behalf of me, I don't think I should be freaking held accountable for that. When the reason why I hired him is because I am illiterate to the law. That's the reason why you hire a lawyer.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, even if you're innocent, you should hire a lawyer because the legal system is so convoluted, it'll throw you in prison even if you're innocent. And that's why they have a law that says if you cannot afford an attorney, you will be provided one because it was so abusive to the point where people were like, this is unbelievable. We have to stand up and change this. So they provide a lawyer now as required
Right.
by law.
And in a similar case, 50 Cent was sued by some people for a large amount of money. He put lawyers in place to defend the case. He lost the case. He ended up suing the lawyers for inadequate representation, and they ended up having to pay the lawsuit. Now, I don't know if that correlates equally, but the point is that a lawyer is required to give you adequate representation and adequate advisement, and none of that includes breaking the law. So once the lawyer broke the law, it doesn't matter if Trump ordered it. Trump could order his lawyer to do anything. The lawyer's obligation is to either not follow that order or find a legal method in order to make what he wanted happen. For instance, when Trump wanted to block all of the Muslim countries from coming to America, he said, block the Muslim countries from coming to America. His lawyers,
Yeah.
Rudy Giuliani included, said that is not legal. You cannot constitutionally do that. So he said, so they said they'd find a legal way to do it. And their way of finding a legal way to do it was by using the list that Obama had that included all of the Muslim countries, but it also included a couple other countries that were not Muslim countries, right?
That were not what?
That were not Muslim countries. So by using Obama's list of countries with that included other countries involved, that got rid of the he's just targeting Muslims thing,
Well, yeah,
right?
because like if he creates a band that's based upon something other than just a religion or something of that affiliation, then it becomes more valid because like you said,
Right.
it's illegal to do so on the basis of it being
Of religion.
Islamic alone. Yeah.
Right. So The point that I'm making is that if Trump could just make the order and the lawyers just follow, then we would have had a Muslim ban. We didn't have a Muslim ban because the lawyers are obligated by law to the law. So what they did was they found a creative way to still give him his Muslim ban, but title it in a legal way so that it can be done. Right. So then when
Yeah,
they went and tried to appeal the Muslim ban, they lost in court and he was able to uphold it because the lawyers found a legal way to do it. Right. And so that's
right.
what I'm saying about Cohen. Right. Cohen's job was not to find the illegal way to do something as Trump's lawyer and advisor, but the system that we're in is so corrupt that they allowed the client to be persecuted for the dealings of the lawyer in the legal system. That is absurd.
Yeah.
Imagine you hiring a lawyer to do something, right? And then he goes and does something illegal and you got to go to jail for it. Like, that's crazy. The lawyer is supposed to go to jail, not you. But he was prosecuted, right? He was prosecuted. He was hit with a bunch of felonies, 39 felonies for paying the prostitute, right? Let me ask you a
Well,
question.
it wasn't just, yeah, I guess, yeah, you could simplify it to that. It's more about like misusing campaign finance to like to his advantage and to like, silence someone. That's what's wrong, Well, what he
Okay,
does
no
on his
problem.
own time in the privacy of his own home with his own money is one thing,
That's
that's
not a
different.
problem. That's not a problem. I won't argue it. Let's say he's guilty. In the history of the legal system in my life, I've never seen a person charged with 10 counts and be found guilty of 10 counts, right? They charge you usually with an overbearing
More,
account,
yes. Yeah, so they
right?
could
That
bargain. Yeah.
so right. So Trump was charged with 39 felonies and he was convicted
That's a
of
pat. Yeah, it's a
all
common tactic. You're right
39.
about that.
All right. So in our common
Hold
experience,
on, hold
and
on.
yeah, no problem.
Gotta go grab it.
Pardon me, guys. Yeah. In our common experience, and pardon me for the people who are in here, if y'all want to drop comments, please do. You know what I mean? I definitely will respond. And
Are there people that are commenting? You said?
no, they're not commenting, but they're like looking. All right. Also, how do I? Oh, I need to drop this in here too for people who want to join. But for those of people that have been here with us for a while, or anybody that just joined and watching, we're having a little debate about Trump, Kamala, Democrat, Republican. You know what we think about it, vice versa, so far and so forth.
You know what would have been funny though is if like they actually did like a boxing match with Trump and Biden. I would have loved to see that, like with Zuckerberg
I would
and what's
not
his
have
name.
loved. That would have been terrible. That would have not been good
Yeah,
to
it
see.
probably would have been pretty bad, but like it would have been good in the way that like it would have gotten them like toughen it out with their fists instead of their words.
Nah, but see,
You
this is
know.
the thing. This is the thing that I don't like, right? The media has so tainted Trump to the point where
Oh,
people actually think that there's an equivalence between Trump and Biden physically.
yep,
Like, there is absolutely none.
yep, yep.
Hold
Thank
on.
you. Appreciate it. The other fight too that like I would have loved to see, and I think is still coming, is Zuckerberg and what's this guy's name, Elon Musk. You
Elon
know, I,
Musk. Right?
yeah, I would love to see that because Zuckerberg, he's on my list too of like people that I don't trust. And then Mark, or rather Elon, he's got some questionable things. He went in support of Trump now, and did you know that? Elon Musk endorsed
Elon?
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's always been a supporter of Trump. He's actually, well, he's pledged some amount of millions too,
Yeah, he
a
did.
large amount of millions,
He did,
right?
and that's got a lot of Democrats fuming about him, and even his own like supporters fuming because
But this is not
Trump is
new. They've
anti-global.
been attacking Elon
Well,
Musk
yeah,
for the
they have
last
been
freaking
attacking
eight
him as well.
years,
But
right?
he himself didn't like Trump because Trump didn't want to accept that global climate change is real and like do things
Yeah,
to mitigate it.
yeah. And that's actually one of the issues I have with Trump too, is the climate change.
Yeah,
You know,
like he's in denial of an obvious fact, and
no,
that's not the only thing.
I don't think he's in denial. I think half his voter base needs the old form of energy.
Yeah, yeah, and it's
I
true,
mean, like,
but that doesn't mean you could still
it's the
like
same reason. It's the
provide.
same reason why he doesn't comment on any like police shootings and things like that.
What they
Right?
should do is like provide cheap energy like gas to like the regular people, like and then heavily tax the industries that are like benefiting off of let's say cheaper gas, and then just give them incentives to take on like renewable energy sources, because like once the investment is put in, the renewable energy is like it's going to be a big payout at the end, because they're going to
Hmm.
have less costs towards their industries, because you have to constantly buy more gas. You don't have
The
to constantly buy
problem,
more sunlight or buy more wind. Once you put the infrastructure there,
unfortunately,
it's there.
the, I would love to help the poor. I really would. And when I
Yeah,
say the poor,
me
I'm
too.
including myself in the poor, right? I would love to
Mhm.
help the poor. But in reality, every person, like I said, the poor do not are not the backbone of our economy. The money that we pay, the taxes that we pay, they really pay for very little in this country, right? And that being said, that means that they don't actually have to take any money from us for anything. You could walk into the store, get what you needed for your house, it'd be all free. You could get gas, oil, all of that could be all free for every single person in this country, and it would not hurt our government, right? Because you can't have one side of the coin without the other. I can't on one side say that we aren't the backbone of our economy, and then say if we give everything for free, it's going to hurt the government, right? So if the government gave everybody everything free, it would not hurt the government. Here's where the problem is. The problem is that when poor people do not invest in what they consume, they abuse and squander and waste what it is that they partake in. The investment that we're asked to put in to contribute to our own existence is strictly here to keep us alive from destroying ourselves, right?
Yeah,
We ourselves as a people would destroy our ability to survive in this world if we weren't limited by what we could afford to purchase.
yeah, that's true too. By the way, what was the operator number? Did you catch that when
Yeah,
it was
yeah, I wrote it
extended?
down on that piece of paper.
Is it three
It's
three
on.
eight? Is that
It's the number and the time is there next to each other. It has a hashtag sign on it. It's
hashtag?
hashtag.
Oh, 515. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, thank you.
yeah. All right.
And I agree, if people were given unlimited access to resources, that there would be some abuse and like destruction, self-destructive behaviors that are going to be, found in the society for sure. Like they did this experiment. I don't know if you're familiar with it. They put rats, or I believe it was mice, because they were smaller. I'm not 100% sure. You might check which species it was. Regardless, they put them in a small container, right? I mean, it wasn't
Hmm.
small like to the point where it's like tiny for mouse. It's actually quite large. It was a large container rather, but it over time it became very very packed with mice, because they were providing them unlimited food and water, and they were reproducing like crazy. And at some point they hit like an apex where they could not really reproduce and grow out into this limited space any longer, and they were clustered, and people noted them that they were like doing crazy things. They were starting to like stop eating. They were starting to eat each other, even though they had abundance of food. Like, why would you be eating your own kind if you have an abundance of food being provided to you by, the scientists? So they
Hmm.
started doing all types of crazy things, dividing their society into little weird groups. And it's like, some people think like maybe this is an indication of what would happen to human society, you know, because mice are actually pretty closely related to us genetically, surprisingly enough. So that's why they do a lot of laboratory experiments on them before they do it on primates and then humans, because mice can actually give you like a sign of what is to come. Um, so,
Hmm.
it's very fascinating that you bring this up, how humans would respond if they had an abundance of resources and access to all the food and water and shelter they needed. It's like, what would
Right.
we do? It's like when there are no more constraints, the only constraint is the planet itself. And then like, space overall. So
Yeah,
like,
like human nature is to be. We're not conservative, right? We're extremely liberal and almost um, obsessive, compulsive, and we. What is this fucking word? My vocabulary is going away right now. But basically, we overdo things,
yeah,
right?
they're
And
impulsive. Yeah, for sure.
and so because we go above and beyond in so many ways, like every human, pretty much, not all, but the majority of humans, if you could if you could afford all of the things that you want in the world, you'd have them,
Yeah,
you know. But if you remember when you were a child, you know, the more things you have, the quicker you got bored with them,
true,
right?
true.
So it's not the idea that that we lack or that we need something. It's the idea that we need something. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't need anything, but we need something because that's just the nature of humans to need, to want more, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, some people say greed is natural, but
all
it depends,
right.
right? Like,
So how do we then at the same time understanding that, how do we judge the rich for achieving? How do we then blame them or penalize them for succeeding at the goal of human desire,
because
which
this
is
at the
to want
expense of
more?
other humans and to our detriment overall as a society.
Well,
And it's
how
not
is
like
it to
saying
the
that all rich
extent?
people are completely exploitative, like assholes that don't have any concern for
No,
human
let's talk
beings or
about the
humanity.
exploiting ones. Let's talk about the bad guys, right? The exploiting ones, right? People who got sweatshops over in Singapore or whatever, or what would you consider a bad business practice that hurts the American society?
Well, yeah, that's one thing that I would say. Like, for instance, like industries that deliberately contribute to the global climate change,
Okay,
industries that use either enable or somehow directly contribute to child labor or in like those concentration camps for Uyghurs in China or any
mhm.
number of other like human rights issues. So like
All right, but
businesses
let's
that thrive on
specifically
that.
talk about American businesses, though. Because that's why I
Uh,
said the sweatshops, but I thought that wasn't a good example because it doesn't really affect the American public in the same kind of way. So something that would be a bad business practice that affects the American public.
well, look at like Amazon. It's a prime example.
Okay.
But then they have like a service where they pressure their customer or their delivery workers and people working within their warehouse to the point where they have no time to even take a piss break. They have to be pissing in bottles, and they're not providing them really adequate like healthcare or anything of the sort. And then like once
Okay.
pressured by Bernie Sanders to raise the minimum wage, they took away their stock benefits in place
Hmm.
of a $15 minimum wage, which ultimately is
Yeah.
actually a pay cut. Because if they hadn't
Hmm.
maintained those stock benefits, they would have had way more money in the long term. But
So did
instead of
Bernie
giving them
Sanders help
both,
the worker or did he hurt the worker?
it wasn't Bernie who put those policies into place. It was Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos. He could have done both.
Here's no, no, no. That's not how it works. We have to think from the person who actually owns the business. Let's not think about the people who did not put in the blood, sweat, and tears to build Amazon's perspective. Let's think about the person who came up with the idea, got the development, got the staff, got human resources together, did the research on how much the company can afford to profit versus how much they could pay out in salary, and then let's decide on whether or not he could afford to give people more money based on what a politician said was okay, right? We can't deny that we all enjoy same day delivery for packages that come from China,
Uh-huh.
okay? Now, you cannot tell me that there's a logistical way to get a package from China to your doorstep in a
Well,
day,
what they do
in
is
the
they have
same
those
day.
warehouses nearby in
That's
every major
right.
metropolitan area.
That's right. They create the illusion of a package going halfway around the world in the same day. And you know how they do it? They make their workers bust their ass to do it. Now, when you're applying for a job, they give you a couple requirements for the job. I know because I've done jobs that require physical labor. They say, can you
Yeah,
stand
me
for
too.
8 hours? Can you lift 50 to 150 pounds? Can you? And they go down a list of things that this job is going to ask you for. Also, when you apply for a job, they have a requirement list that describes details and requirements for having this job. They also give you a pay rate that you want to take when you take this job. You bypass all of these things and agree to all of these things, and then you get the job. Now, a politician decides, or a union decides, or a bunch of disgruntled employees decide that what you guys have all agreed to is not adequate, and you force the company by law, legal legislation to affect their profit margin.
Well, actually, Bernie Sanders didn't pass any $15 minimum wage laws. That was just because the campaign he was pushing for highlighted how lack of like adequate pay is a huge issue in a
So you
multitude of
force
sectors
them
around
through
America.
so you force them through media pressure and social pressure that would affect their bottom line to change
Ultimately, yeah,
their rates.
that was something of a tactic, yes, but it wasn't necessarily the goal. The goal was to legalize, like to put that legislation through to Congress so that all companies
Okay,
have to live by that.
okay, but this is the problem with listening to a person who believes in socialism about how companies should
Yeah,
deal
I
with
agree.
their.
I don't align with him in a lot of things, or at least
Well,
in some regards, because
well,
he
here's the
doesn't have the
problem.
best idea about economics.
His intent to destroy Amazon would have left the country in shambles. Would have left a global gap in the world's ability to logistically deliver goods and services to the people of America to a level that we got used to. Not only that, if that idea continues company after company after company, it turns our country into a socialist society,
I'm not
right?
saying like we should go full on socialist or communist for that matter because equal pay for different levels of work and like
These are
dedication to
socialist
your labor
ideas.
is not a right way to go. You know,
These are
well, no,
socialist
socialism is
ideas.
giving the means of production to either directly to the government or to the people through the government. So that's a different
Mhm.
story. Communism is the payment of like equal value to each and every person, but that has never existed. So nonetheless, let's disregard that. The thing is, when it comes to socialism, there's a lot of misconceptions. We have like a terrible idea about it, but in reality, we don't really even fully understand what it is. When it comes to the idea that the government can interfere with the economy, that is in some way, I guess what some people, at least in America, would consider socialist. But in
Well,
reality, we have plenty of
socialism
involvement in the government.
socialism is not just what it does. Socialism is also the effects of socialism, right? So, um, for instance, we spoke about public assistance or welfare earlier. That's socialist program, right? Um, Parks, beaches, those are socialist developments, right? Um, Public schools, those are socialist
Yeah,
developments.
anything like basically government owned would be
Yeah,
qualified as some form of socialism or another because it's just giving the means of production to the government and the people. Sometimes like you call it democratic socialism, so like people elect officials to represent them and control the means of production. Well,
right,
that has been proven to be inefficient time and time again, especially
right.
because like it forces people to have like a dictatorship or authoritarian regime because we can't agree on what to do with the means production. There's a
Well,
lot of conflicting interests.
here's where you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? Here's where, on one hand, you think you speak of socialism and a semi-positive light, but on the other hand, you admit that it doesn't work, right?
Yeah, the way that
So,
it's been attempted in the world, it has not worked. It has not worked in our favor overall. But I
well,
mean, there's some people that argue that they preferred life under the Soviet Union
well,
because they had better benefits. They had like a place to live and like a
well,
guaranteed, healthcare.
people who are not achievers will always prefer for something to be given to them, right? Now, here's the question. In America, we have a bunch of socialist facilities that we've listed already, right? And I'll challenge you to find something that has the word public in front of it that is what we would consider adequate or sufficient as
Yeah,
far as
I agree. I mean,
services and
most of them are
quality.
insufficient, and I that's why I'm saying, I don't agree with Bernie Sanders on a lot of things, but in principle, I agree that housing should not be it should be a right. It should not be something that people have to fight and tooth and nail to sustain and like
Sure.
suffer
Take
three,
a
four
trip.
jobs just to have a home over their heads.
No
Same
problem.
with
Take a
healthcare.
trip.
Healthcare should be a
Take a
right,
trip
not
to
a
public
privilege.
housing. Take a trip to public housing and see what it looks like and see if you'd like to live
I've
there.
been in public housing. I've lived in, subsidized government subsidized housing before. I know how that is. It's not always
All right.
pleasant. Sometimes it's all right actually, but it depends on how it's run. So
Well,
the other thing is like I want to highlight is a business practice, right? Like the idea
okay.
that businesses have to prioritize the shareholder and the value they provide to the shareholder, which essentially
Uh-huh.
is whoever has the most stocks and then,
Right.
increase the value of those stocks. That's their highest
Mhm.
priority. That's their fiduciary duty. In fact,
Right.
hold on a second. Okay. Yeah. So, the whole thing is that, there are different ways to run a business, but the fact that it's in the corporate bylaws that, you have to prioritize fiduciary duties like stock, stocks and like over the actual performance of a company, that shows that, there's a huge flaw in the system itself.
I
So,
don't understand the
overall,
flaw.
the flaw is that regardless of whether the products or services are adequate or or the company itself is benefiting society as a whole, that it ultimately still has to provide value to the shareholder. And so they'll prioritize, let's say, stock buybacks over improving the company overall. Let's say putting money back into research and
Okay.
development. So like, the people that are benefiting are only the shareholders. And then what about all the other people that are having a negative effects as a result of that business practice? Like let's say the oil
Like
industry, the
what other
tobacco
people?
industry,
All right. So
like the general population.
let's try it this way. Who are the shareholders?
Well, the shareholders are usually the top the top shareholder is typically the CEO, right? And then there's a board sometimes. So like there are like a board president or something, and like they vote on things, but amongst themselves, who are the top shareholders. So
All
like,
right. How do
they'll
you
prioritize
become
themselves over everyone else in the company and the products and the services they provide to people,
how do you
That's the
typically
problem.
become a shareholder?
Well, either you start with the shares by, creating the company yourself, or you buy into the company at some point by investing.
So shareholders are people who've invested in the dream of the company.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
They either the dream or the profit or the possible benefit financially. Yeah.
Possible benefit financially is still a dream.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got people who've invested into the dream of the company. Those are the shareholders. And then there's everybody else, the people who have not invested in your company and your dream.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
clear on the two
yeah.
different people here? Okay,
Well, yeah.
so who should we prioritize? The people who've invested in the dream of the success of the company with their own money, or the people who just talk about the badness about your company all day?
Well, as people who are also consumers who provide money to the business, we also need to have some consideration, right? Like if the products that
You
you're
are
providing are damaging the environment and
misunderstanding.
hurting the community that they're serving, then it
We
becomes a
have
problem
to
beyond.
we have to come to agreement of the value of the consumer. We have to come to agreement of the value of the person making a purchase over the cash register to the company, because the company's value is not, in my mind, resting in the customer. The company's value, as you said, is prioritized in the investors, the people who've taken hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars and invested into this company. They're not concerned with the person paying $3 at the cash register.
What about the people that, I mean, it's not just the one person. It's like the masses that are purchasing goods and services from this company. And
Who,
they also have children and families who are living in communities that then have to suffer the consequence of, let's say, illegal dumping or negligence when it comes to, the way they get rid of their waste from, oil industries, especially. There's a lot of negative consequences that come from, not to mention global climate change, that hurt us as a whole,
you
society.
might be right. You might be right.
So
If
the point
one
is, like, really,
person,
like, they
mhm,
should invest that money instead of into their own shares and bolstering the value of the company. They need to invest into researching ways to reduce that waste and developing technologies that will help address those concerns, and that will also increase the popularity and increase the sales. But they don't
no,
do that. And you know why? Because they can't. Because the law is literally stating they have to prioritize the shareholder. That is literally their legal obligation. So,
so again, prioritizing the shareholders doesn't conflict with making the environment better. Okay, prioritizing the shareholders means that they have to find a way to optimize the investment and inform the shareholders of any plans that lead you otherwise. Meaning that if I need to take a certain amount of loss and profit margin to make sure that the environmental regulations or the environmental morals of our countries of our company is upheld, then I need to inform the shareholders of that plan. Here's the question though, right? Because it's easy for us to separate ourselves from the shareholders, but we are the shareholders. At least those of us that are invested in whatever company that we're speaking about at the moment.
yeah.
We are the shareholders. We are the people that they're looking out for, right? So while you might suffer on one end, when you collect your portfolio um, profits, you'll be pleased, right? And
Yeah, to
if your
some extent.
portfolio were going down because the environment was being saved, then that CEO would be removed
But
from
that's the
his
thing. Why
post.
can't we do both, right? Let's
Well,
say
you gotta
we
ask us the
prioritize.
share. You gotta ask us the people that. You can't blame the CEO for
No,
executing
but
our
okay, let's
wishes.
say we want to do that, prioritize the stakeholders outside of the shareholders, like people who live in the world that they're damaging. If we prioritize that in the environment and then, try to create, innovate technologies to reduce the impact they're having on that environment, isn't that beneficial? Isn't that also
People
something the
don't
shareholders
care
consider?
about the environment. The environment is a boosted up care for people that the media has portrayed that for us to care about. And that's why we care about the environment. We don't look out into the environment and see pollution. We don't look out into the environment and feel anything. We don't know anything is going on. The media is telling us that now. Now, That doesn't mean it's not real. It is absolutely a real thing, and it's great that they made us aware of it. But in general, none of us are going to put our cell phones down. None of us are going to carpool. None of us are going to do, and most of us
No, I
don't
mean
even want electric
that's not
vehicles.
entirely true, man. Like I try to do those things. I try to prioritize purchases that are, gonna have a positive effect and
You try,
reduced effects,
you
negative.
try, but you could actually stop. Like if there was something, if your doctor told you that if you drank Coca-Cola anymore, that you were gonna die, you'd stop. If your doctor
Well,
told you that
no, no.
using
So
your
like,
cell
look,
phone
people
is
tell people
is
like doctors will tell people, hey, you'll die of lung cancer if you keep smoking cigarettes. You know how hard it is for them to quit, even if they know that.
yeah,
It's not
that's the
easy once you're used to
we're talking about narcotic addiction when you're talking about cigarettes, right? We're talking about if a doctor told you that you using your cell phone was
But we're addicted
radiating.
to fossil fuels, the convenience of it, the fact
No,
that
no,
it
no,
gets
no,
us.
no. We're used to fossil fuels. We're not
Yeah.
addicted to fossil fuels.
All right. So you don't think that the fact that like, we have to drive around to get to work and like do all these things that require fossil fuels, you don't think to some level that we're dependent on it? Like even if it's not a physical addiction, you're addicted to,
Yes, we are
you know,
dependent.
yeah.
Absolutely. We are dependent. That being said, dependency can be broken if desire is there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Dependency is about priority, right? So if you're
Yeah.
prioritizing nature, then, and we do have people who prioritize and they're walking around with finger shoes and all that other shit, right?
I used to have some finger shoes. I
Right?
don't think that has any priority over nature though.
Well, people are wearing Toms then. How about that? Right?
Finger shoes are actually better for your feet. That's
For your
why.
feet, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people are wearing, people out here wearing Toms, helping the environment and that kind of thing.
Tom's
But
helps the environment. I didn't even know that.
yeah, every time you buy a pair of Toms, they donate a pair to Africa or some shit like that.
Yo, come on. You don't even
Yeah,
sound
people.
serious about that. I gotta
No,
look into this.
no, it's real. I'm not bullshitting. It is real. Yeah, I mean, but
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
you can Google it just so that we're valid. We're on the internet, so it is good to have that information
Right.
100% validated.
For
But
sure.
yeah. So in general, people are very good at being judgmental of another person's life. But with their own life, people usually make allowances for themselves that are hypocritical and contradict the stances that they take. Right? The reality is that we're all here to make the best of this life that we have, and the government has built a system that allows that. And that's why America is so great. So for us to now, after enjoying the greatness, to now look back and try to correct the greatness, it's kind of like um, somebody seeing you building a house or seeing you with a bunch of money and telling you that if they had that kind of money, what they would do and what they wouldn't do after seeing you with the idea. But when there was no idea, they didn't have any idea of what they would do or what they wouldn't do. You know, we
I'm
in
saying though, at
America,
least give the corporations an option. Like allow them to then base their
they do
decisions
have
upon
an
more than
option.
just
That,
stockholders.
but that's the beauty of capitalism. Capitalism is the option. The people will decide.
No, but
Right?
the thing is, the corporate structure doesn't allow for them to prioritize
It
other share or
absolutely
stockholders.
does. It absolutely
Stake.
does.
Look
Capitalism
into it,
decides.
man. Look at the way the corporate laws are written.
You
Like,
don't
look at the
understand. It
bylaws.
doesn't. The laws of corporation do not trump capitalism. Meaning, if the if the bottom line of the company starts going down, the fiduciary duty of the company kicks in, meaning that at any point that the people of the world were so concerned with the environment that they decided not to participate with giving dollars to a company that didn't take it seriously, then the stock would go down and the companies would not be doing their fiduciary duty to their shareholders. You understand?
Yeah,
We, the people, are the consumers of the bullshit. The companies and the CEOs are just supplying us what we want.
that's the thing though.
That's
Like it's beyond that, you know. Like even Elon Musk is coming out and saying like we shouldn't have these there's like these other considerations for like what we were discussing, like other
yeah, we should take
stockholders, like
freedom away. Yeah, I know. Elon Musk, he's like a doctor in that sense. He doesn't believe in human rights. He's a computer. All right. Okay.
yeah, I guess you could say that.
Doctors, they don't have a problem with, listen, she's already dying. Take her out of here. Throw her in the garbage, man. What are we sitting here investing money in that for? We need the best place for somebody who we can really help. You know what I mean? Like doctors are like that. Kill the
He's
baby.
confusing though, because like
It's
he
not
says he
viable.
cares about the environment. His agenda is to like prolong human civilization and like the conscious human
Yes,
consciousness
as a whole,
expanded.
not as an individual,
Yeah.
as a whole, as a concept, the human race, not the human person. You
Huh.
understand? Like the actual individual human person he could give a shit about. Right? It's the human species. It's the he's a computer guy. So he thinks in
Yeah.
systems,
Yeah.
right? He thinks in systems. So he's trying to preserve the human system as opposed to the individual human being. So it doesn't make sense systematically for us to only live on Earth. That's
Yeah.
his argument, right?
Yeah. That's true.
And so
But he's opposed
Elon,
to like these laws that change the corporate structure to allow them to consider us as well, not just the shareholders, but also the other stakeholders that are outside of the company.
yeah, there
He's
should
against
be
that.
no because he's for the technology.
Hmm.
He's like think about it like this, right? Elon Musk has created an environmental masterpiece in the Tesla, right?
Hmm.
And it's taken off. It's probably one of the most popular cars on the road today, right? So there is clearly a demand for Tesla cars. The issue is there's also a significant population of the society that will never own a Tesla. They're completely opposed to anything EV, anything electric at all. Right? Company like Dodge, they were the most successful car company from 2000, I'd like to say 2010, 12 to 2023. And the reason is because they invented the Hemi engine, V8 Hemi engine,
Oh,
found in the
okay.
Magnum, the Dodge Charger, the Hellcat, the Demon, and all of these other cars, right?
Hellcat, that's actually a car name. I thought that was like a nickname for a type of car.
Yeah, it's actually not the name of a car, it's actually the name of an engine
Oh, okay.
that they put into the cars, right? But basically these these cars, this was the most successful car company, right? They've come with the government, Joe Biden has come with regulations as far as EPA, emissions,
Yeah.
and environmental stuff,
Yeah.
saying that what if you intend to keep creating these V8 engines, you have to pay X amount in fines for each car that you put out to the world, right? Cool.
Mm-hmm.
They've been fighting it for some years. In 2023, they decided they wouldn't fight it anymore. They stopped the production of the Hemi V8 and they began production of only EV, right?
Mm-hmm. I heard
This
that. Yep.
crashed that company, right?
Which company is that that crashed?
Dodge.
Dodge? Was that? I thought
Yeah.
it was owned by like GM or something.
It's owned by, I mean, all of them, there's a group of companies, GM, Dodge, and all of them, they're owned by a company called Stellantis,
Stellantis. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And that company is going down because of this decision. On the flip side, you've got Ford and you've got Chevy and all of these other companies who've invested heavily into the same V8 engine, and their sales are starting to go up. Now, here comes Trump, and one of his campaign promises is to end all of these EPA rules crippling the American car industry.
Mm-hmm.
Right? where he's gonna allow for these companies to make these engines without the penalties. Now, here's the question. Is Trump wrong for removing these environmental protections? Because that's how it will be painted.
Well, it depends. Like, who is it wrong for, right? Like, if you ask the general consumer, is it bad for your pocket? Is it bad for your, financial situation that you have to struggle to
Well, none
purchase a
of us
vehicle?
want electrical vehicles. We don't want to freaking sit and charge for an hour or plug it in overnight. Like we don't want to do that. Most of us don't have garages and shit, so we got like in my neighborhood. I'm walking by, I see a Tesla with an extension cord from the house to the street. This guy got
Yeah,
his Tesla
it's
plugged
pretty
into the street.
ridiculous.
It's
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous. Like I could have fucking cut the shit that stole his cord, whatever it is. Like I could have really
Well,
damaged
there's
this
this
shit.
other vehicle that's being mass produced in the next year. It's called Aptera. It's
Yeah.
a three-wheel vehicle, seats two people, and it can go 1,000 miles on a single charge.
Hmm.
So the concept is like you put solar panels on it and make it as like energy efficient as possible. So like they designed it like it looks like a fucking alien spaceship. So like
Yeah, people
it
don't want to drive those. The Tesla truck is doing terribly because people don't want spaceships. People want their cars that they like, right? And we
yeah.
want to we want to put gas in the car and we want to hit that engine, rev it up. You know what I'm saying? And we want to freaking go out on the street like Americans do in
Yeah, because I
America.
was thinking about investing into it before they went public, but there is this concern like whether they're gonna actually be able to reach like production, and like if they do reach it, like is they gonna be affordable enough for average American to purchase? Because initially they were gonna sell it for like 15K. Now the price is 35K. So it's like how much is it really gonna be once it hits production? You know?
Right, right.
And it's only got the ability to seat two people, so it's not good for a family. It's really only good for like an individual or a couple at most, without a kid.
Yeah, so basically EVs are not what the people want and they're forcing it into they're forcing it. And it's not a situation like it was with like horses in the car, because I'm sure that the government did the same kind of thing when that transition came about, right?
Yeah,
But the reason that that was more acceptable was because the car was more efficient than the horse was. Not
yeah.
only
It'll
that,
be a
the
while before the solar
horses,
panels are more efficient than fucking gas. It'll take a
right?
while.
Horses were dangerous. Cars have more danger than EVs do, right? Normal combustion cars have more danger than EVs do. So that could also be an argument. But
Yeah.
for, for the most part,
Well, actually, electric cars when they go on, they combust. They become very difficult to put out the fire. Like
right,
they're
yes,
far more dangerous when they're already combusted.
on fire, right.
Yeah.
But
So that's different.
for the car companies to have to be forced to give the clientele, the customer, something that they don't want, based on government pressures, I
Yeah.
think is indicative of the Democrat Party and Democrat rule. I just think it's
Yeah.
just so they just do what nobody wants and nobody's asking for constantly. You know, they
Yeah,
and
yeah, they're not terribly effective for sure. I would like to see like better, initiatives coming from the Democratic Party, or like allow an independent candidate to win office. That would be nice too.
okay, honestly, where is the consortium of people that are asking for LGBTQ people to be allowed to go into the bathrooms that they gender identify as?
That's just mostly like far left, progressives that think like, you know,
I don't think
somehow
that
there
that's a
should be
far
protected.
left.
You know.
I don't think that's a far left progressive thing. I don't think that's a LGBTQ request. I think there is honestly just a thought panel of people who do thought problems
Uh huh.
and create thought situations and then come with these laws based on these thought experiments. You know, I honestly don't believe that there's a large consensus of people in the public that are requesting any of the Democrat points.
Well, I
And
find it interesting too, like that one of the most prominent like transgender people on the planet, what's her name or his name, whatever you want to
Caitlyn,
identify her as, the
Caitlyn
one of
Jenner,
the, is it Caitlyn? That's her name?
yeah,
Yeah, the
his name, yeah,
ex-Olympian.
its name, yeah, their name.
Yeah, like now is like somehow a big pro-Trump supporter when Trump has like no interest in protecting the rights of transgender people.
That's
It's
not
just fascinating.
true. That's not true. Because someone is interested in protecting the rights of non-transgender people does not mean that we're not protecting the rights of transgenders. This is my problem with this whole agenda, and this is why I call it a thought experiment. What laws or what rights of transgenders are being impeded at this point? I think all the accomplishments have been achieved. We're now impeding on the rights of people who are not transgenders.
Yeah, to some
That's
extent, I
where we're
agree.
going now. I don't think the transgenders are being impeded or ridiculed or have any civil rights issues at all anymore. Any more than what black people would have anyway in this
I mean,
country.
sometimes they're still ridiculed, but yeah, like the issue is
The
like, for instance,
ridicule is
with
what is this?
Canada.
Everybody has to like anything.
No,
Like
yeah, I
ridicule is a
agree.
normal thing.
Yeah, I agree. So like with the Toronto law they tried to pass where they required people to identify them by their preferred pronouns. Jordan Peterson was a big opponent of that bill because like how are you going to fine or legally obligate people to call you by your preferred pronoun but you were born a certain sex? It's like it's a little bit delusional, like how can you claim that you're a male when you were born a female? It's not like you were born a hermaphrodite with both genders and then like you have to get rid of one or the other.
Correct.
It's like you
Correct.
transitioned from a fully male or female being into a fucking something that doesn't have either, because like when you're transitioning from a male to a female you have to remove your testicles and you invert your penis and like do all these horrific things to your body and like pump yourself full of hormones and like sometimes get implants, and like facial reconstruction, like get Adam's apples removed or reduced. It's like a tremendous amount of surgery. Like it can be quite devastating on a human body.
You've removed your relevance.
Yeah.
What,
And it's not
what,
like you're making them into an actual opposite sex. Like you're just giving the illusion of it. And then you
no,
want people to
listen.
legally be obligated to call you what you prefer to be called. Like that just seems absurd to me.
When a dog walks out into the street, he's constantly sniffing the hormones of his fellow dogs, males, females, and he has different reactions to each dog based on the hormones that he smells. Neutered male dogs receive no reaction from unneutered male dogs unless they still display dominance. But if a neutered male dog does not display dominance, then a male dog that is not neutered shows no reaction to that dog. Right?
Yeah. And
And
there are
that,
gay animals too, by the way. But
no, I
that's a
don't know
different
about that.
topic.
I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah, you
about
can look
that.
into it. There are. It's a
No,
fact. It's a biological, thing.
no, no. That is humans putting human characteristics on animals, acting like they speak animal
No, no, like we have
language.
recorded instances of like animals of the same sex engaging in sexual activity with each other. But
Sexual
it's not
activity,
common.
hold
Yeah.
on. Sexual activity or sexual intercourse?
Sexual intercourse, man. Like a dog
No,
humping
there's
another male
no,
dog.
there is humping another male dog is not sexual activity. Sexual intercourse is sexual activity. Do not put human characteristics on animals, right? We just have to understand that they're not people, right? Animals show dominance to each other by dominating, humping. In other words, if you take a female pit bull, right, which is a fighting breed of dog, and you bring her amongst other female pit bulls or male pit bulls, because she's a fighting breed of dog, she's going to assert dominance. How does she assert dominance? By getting on top of the other dog and humping. Now, she doesn't have a penis.
Interesting. I
She's
didn't
not
think
getting
about that aspect. That could be a factor for sure.
okay. It's animal language. It's not human language. And although we are similar, we aren't the same, right? And animals aren't sexually driven the way we are, meaning that they only breed when they are in heat.
Huh.
Okay. So if there's no heat going on, if there's no estrus, if there's no ovulation going on, then breeding is not what they're thinking about.
I see. Okay. I mean, that's a good point to make. I don't know why they didn't consider that in their studies,
They
their
did
observations.
consider it. They just had an LGBTQ agenda. That's all. They knew it. They're scientists. That's why I said we have to start giving these people more credit than we're giving them. We're making it seem like we're so brilliant coming up with this stuff. We're not as brilliant as we think we are. They're the smart ones, and they're lying to us purposely.
Hmm. Yeah, I think there is a lot of deception going on, and that's part of the reason people have lost faith in our institutions. You know, they don't
Yeah,
trust the government, they don't trust the scientific institutions, they don't trust higher education and media, mass media, because they see how much deception is going on across the
we
board.
grew up. We grew up in an era with marijuana commercials. They used to tell us how bad it was for us.
Right. Yeah,
Now it's
completely
legal.
farce. Yeah, completely wrong. And I mean, the only thing that's correct about it is like if you're underage and you're heavy chronic smoker, you could affect your brain development. But other than that, most of that was propaganda.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
somehow to
absolutely.
discourage you from heavier drug use because it's a gateway
Yeah,
drug or something.
and I don't think it's a drug that affects the brain. If you have a developing brain and you input smoke instead of oxygen, that's all right. You're gonna have developmental issues. I think that's pretty typical. I don't think the actual substance of marijuana is the effect of that.
Well, anything that could kind of throw your hormonal or neurochemical balance off, that can have some developmental effects, especially because the brain is still growing. Actually, the brain is
Well,
still growing into your early 20s, so theoretically,
right.
you should stop like from chronic use until you're like in mid 20s if
Well,
you want to
I
avoid
would.
any issues.
Well, unfortunately for you, 15-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and 2-year-olds all have tetrahydrocannabinoidal receptors
Yeah, yeah,
in their body, meaning that they're all built to receive marijuana.
yeah. To get high off of marijuana, yeah, that's true. And a
I
lot of
wouldn't say
animals don't
get
have it.
I wouldn't say get high. That's a human characteristic. I would say their bodies are built to be receptive to marijuana.
Yeah, yeah,
All
that's
right,
true.
so I wouldn't say that the actual THC in marijuana does anything negative to the brain because that just wouldn't evolutionally make sense. Right? I would say that the smoke, which shouldn't be a part of our bodies for any reason, is probably what causes the issue, which is what causes the issues in your lungs, and which is what causes the issues.
Well, if that's the case, then anyone holding their breath for too long can have like detrimental effects on their brain development. So like swimmers, people
Absolutely,
that are like somehow like restricting
absolutely.
their oxygen intake.
5 minutes without oxygen and you will be brain dead. Doesn't matter if they bring your body back to life. You're done.
That's not true. There are people that have been without oxygen for longer than that. It's just brain damage starts to take effect after 5 minutes, I believe.
Yeah, well, that's just what it is. Like you said, the lack of oxygen holding your breath for too long will cause the same brain damage some people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely oxygen is key for sure. You want to have a good intake of oxygen just to like promote your health, your not just your brain health, your overall physical health, well-being, your muscles, everything.
All right, so if we're talking about a developing brain and then you start restricting oxygen and adding cindering or combustible biological materials into your brain, then there could be some developmental issues. Like,
Well,
but
I
is
never
that?
saw any studies that show like smoking cigarettes causes the same or similar developmental issues in the brain. So that's
I'm
another
sure
thing.
that there's a reason why there's an age limit on cigarettes.
Oh yeah, yeah, because it's addictive and it has bad detrimental health effects to you, cancer, etc.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's well, maybe I don't know. I won't say I don't. I won't doubt it. But what I'll say is, I'm pretty sure that the smoke is the detrimental thing, not the thing that our bodies are built to receive.
Well,
It just
if that's
seems
the case, aren't our bodies built to have some level of smoke in our bodies and our lungs? Like, because we've had
no,
fire for how many or thousands of years?
no. Our bodies are built to reject and repel smoke. That's why we get nose hairs and
Oh
tonsils.
yeah, irritants. That's true. Yeah, yeah, that's a fact. Mm.
Right? So we cough. You know, that's a way of exiting all of that stuff from our lungs. You know what I mean? Basically, basically, smoke is a foreign body. Smoke is a foreign body as far as our bodies are concerned. And we repel it at every chance that we get. And people have to get used to smoking in order to even be able to smoke. Like when people first start smoking, it's not a pleasant experience. It's the desire to want to smoke is what gets people to be able to smoke in the first place. Everybody smokes and coughs their first time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, it's
yeah,
just,
yeah. That's a good point too. So, I'm not that
you know,
well, versed in neuroscience that I could like claim
yeah,
to
yeah,
know
no,
whether it's like the
no, I'm
smoke
not either.
associated with THC.
I'm speculating, but I just, to me, it's counterintuitive that we have receptors for something that damage us cognitively, right? I would think that we have receptors for something because we evolved consuming it,
Yeah,
right? Like somewhere in our evolution and the evolution of this plant, somehow they were intertwined with each other, right? And I would think that that would um, affect us in limited cognitive ability, right? And and in evolution, if that was the case, unless our people have always reserved the use of marijuana for the elders. You know what I mean?
right.
You
Right.
know? But if you look at the natural uses of cocaine and the yeah, uh-huh.
Okay. Well, yeah, obviously there had to be development of cocoa receptor cap. The coca bean itself is like been old. It's been around for a long time amongst human beings and like been used chewed. Like they've been chewing the leaves for many, many hundreds of years.
That's right. As a matter of fact, they use it to cure baby illnesses like colic and upset stomach. So
Oh,
they
I
used
didn't
to
know that.
give, yeah,
Huh.
when the babies are crying uncontrollably and things like that, they'd give them a leaf to chew on. Or they'd make a tea out of it and they'd feed it to the babies. And culturally, they were able to not only survive, but to thrive as a culture doing that. So, you know,
Hmm.
for me,
There must have been some benefit, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, there has to be some benefit because we use the coca leaf to this day in our medicines. Coca Cola to this day uses the coca leaf as a flavoring.
Yeah, I found that to be very shocking. But they removed the actual psychoactive
Yeah,
substance.
yeah, imagine that. I'm gonna tend to not believe that so much.
Right.
And what they do, wash the leaf until it was out.
That's a good point.
Like, so I tend not to believe that too much. But again, drugs, drugs in our society is reserved to European countries, right? And you'll find that if the drug does not come from a European country, then it's illegal. However, you'll find that that the original source of the drug that comes from the European country comes from a colored country that we are at war at. What do I mean when I say that? Most of our pain medicines come from European countries, right?
Yeah.
They are the things that end in the INE
Yeah. Pharmaceutical
suffix.
industry is mostly European and American. Yeah.
Right. Okay. These substances that come from these European companies and American companies are all based on opiates. Opiates are opium based. Opium base comes from the poppy plant, and the poppy plant comes from Afghanistan. Right?
Yeah.
So, heroin, which is opium direct without the European intervention, is illegal. But every other European form of heroin, morphine, and all this other stuff, is legal, right? Because it's passed through European hands. The same thing with bare diamonds versus blood diamonds. What's the difference? One's passed through the European's hand and one hasn't.
Hmm.
I know it sounds like um, heavily racial, but that's really the basis of it. And you can go through every product in America, right? If it is not able to be, if it comes from a colored country, and this we're talking about sugar and stuff like that, because we don't accept anything of real value from colored countries, right? But if it does come from a colored country, it goes through our processes of taxation and all of that stuff, and heavily, and those countries are tariffed, and they become persecuted third world countries that we get to farm them for their resources. But the real valuable things, the things that run our pharmaceutical industry, the things that run our oil industry, the things that run our jewelry industry, finance industry, those all primarily come from European countries. And if they are sourced from a country that is not European, we're dropping bombs on that country.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true too. I've seen that time and time again.
Yeah. Um,
There are
it,
vested financial interests in the drug industry, the pharmaceutical industry especially.
all right. But when we don't make the correlation in America, they're so great at separating the chicken on the farm from the chicken in your plate, right? The American needs the grocery store in between that to even understand if they're the same thing, right? The same thing as the drug industry versus the pharmaceutical industry. Like one feeds the other. But America and our society has found such a great way to separate the two that we don't realize that we sell heroin over the counter, but we arrest heroin and bomb heroin factories where they make them.
Right. Huh. I agree that first of all, a lot of drugs, having them criminalized to this point has been detrimental to society more than it has been beneficial. Especially cannabis and these like really not terribly bad for you. Like there's more benefits to marijuana than there are detriments. But like,
Mhm.
somehow we've classified it at the same level as heroin or cocaine and like, equated it to be just as bad in the scheduling of the drug by the DEA. So
Right,
like, it seems ridiculous to me that they have it still classified to this day as being on the same level. When you've
right,
seen it, we obviously can see how much of a negative effect addiction to heroin can have, and or cocaine or crack cocaine, no less, which is even worse. But somehow they're on the same level. Doesn't make any sense. And the fact that it still remains like that, even after most of the states in America had legalized it, not just for medicinal use, but for recreational use, and yet we still have it
Right.
scheduled at the same level. It doesn't make any sense.
That's right. As a matter of fact, there's a rapper by the name of Boosie Badass. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was arrested as a felon in possession of a gun. Right now, normally in the history of America, this was a guaranteed jail sentence. He ended up beating this case. And the reason he ended up beating this case was because recently the Supreme Court has ruled in a case, the, the state versus Duarte or something like that. I forget how they phrase it, but the gentleman's name was Duarte. He was basically a felon who um, who went and had a gun, got caught with a gun possession.
Which
And
state
he,
was that?
I don't remember what state it was, but Boosie got arrested in Texas, so it's possible that it was in Texas.
Oh, they have
Um,
really loose gun restrictions. So.
right. So he, thank you. So Duarte got arrested with a gun as a felon, and he was successfully able to argue that committing a crime, especially a non-violent crime, doesn't allow the government to remove your constitutional right to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So he was vindicated of his crime, and that happened to Boosie as well. He was able to beat his case based on that Supreme Court case that he was a felon, non-violent felon with a gun, and he should still be able to protect himself under the Constitution. He
Yeah,
won.
that's
So
good.
what happened? Yeah, that is great. But see, here's what happens. He makes a celebratory video post. He tells everybody he's free, cries, all of this stuff, and then he's re-indicted under the same crime, except with an additional charge, and that is being felon in possession of a weapon, but also being addicted to a narcotic.
What?
The narcotic was marijuana. Because this
How?
was
How
a
is that a crime?
federal crime, because it's a federal crime, and under federal statute, marijuana is rated as a Class A drug.
Oh.
So the district attorney who has a personal vendetta against Boosie was able to use this in order to thank you. Oh, you feel me? All right, man. They were able to use this loophole in order to try to convict him for a crime that the government said that he did not commit. And it's
Yeah,
not
that's
that he
pretty
was in
ridiculous.
possession of the gun. He was in possession of the gun. The government said that that is not a crime under the Constitution.
I can't believe they re-indicted him. But like, how do you addicted to marijuana? First of all, how do you prove that?
Addicted to marijuana. See, but there is a federal definition for being an addict, and he doesn't fit the definition. So most likely he'll beat the case. But it's just to show the power of the government and how these laws do affect people on a federal level, right? You can think you're okay, and California has a lot of that, where people have been allowed by their state to open stores, and the feds will come in, close down the stores, and giving people 12 years, 10 years, a lot of time,
Yeah.
federally, based on marijuana distribution. So you're right in that sense. It is ridiculous, but I don't think that there's any drug that the government should be dictating whether or not adults should partake in. Even if it is for public betterment or whatever, I think we just do a better job of keeping the public clean and safe from that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah, like this countries that have legalized or have decriminalized most drugs, like the Netherlands or Portugal, and they have less addiction and like less of those repercussions like that you would expect like from drug use, because they don't have this culture of fear. They have a culture of understanding what moderation is and understanding there's a place for everything if you just have some sense,
Right.
just apply common sense.
I grew up in a Jamaican household, and in my house there was liquor everywhere. We have a bar almost in every room in my mother's house. Right, and every time one of her friends came over, they'd give liquor to them. And as I was growing up, every event they pour something in my cup, and I drink it, or they give me their cup and they tell me to drink it. My mother made cakes, right, with rum in them since I was a little kid. I've been eating cakes made with heavily rum. Every time the cake dried out a little bit, she pour extra rum all over the top of it to make it a little bit more moisturized. Right? This is how I grew up. I'm not a drinker to this day.
Yeah.
Right? I might take a sip like if I'm out at a social event around people, but other than that, I don't drink. I prefer the flavor of juice and soda.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
never prohibited in my life, so I never felt the need to, I don't know, wild out with alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the best way to get people to abuse something. You just tell them they can't do it. That's the first most surefire way to get people to addicted or like somehow compelled to do it is you tell them you this is prohibited, you cannot do it, you cannot have it. Exactly the opposite happens every time.
Right.
You see that in prohibition.
Hmm.
Same with the drugs.
On the other side, I didn't see you over there. All right, man. Uh huh. Sir, I happened to walk into the building where the shooter you got his video, his commercial made. Black
Oh
Rock.
yeah, BlackRock. That's right. I found that interesting as well that he was in the commercial, but I think that's coincidence. If you
Yeah,
think about it, they were just funding some school event, like school, like type of activities, and then they wanted to promote themselves, like, "Hey, we fund schools. Look at this. We have a school that we this is part of our funding. Is like here's some random people in the school enjoying our money." And they wanted to promote themselves, but they didn't know that the shooter was going to end up being one of the kids there. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a coincidence that the person who tried to assassinate the president also worked at the most powerful, or did a commercial for the most powerful company in the world, and he was just at a school at a fundraiser. Yeah, that's a coincidence. Just like the first black president in America just so happened to be born of African and a white mother, and he was born off of the continental U.S. states in a state that became a state 2 years before his birth. A lot of coincidences.
Which state? What are you talking about?
Hawaii,
Hawaii? Uh,
yeah, Hawaii didn't become a part of America until 2 years before Barack Obama was born.
well, I mean, it was already a part of it, I guess, when he was born there, right? So,
Yeah, that
and his
was that
mom
was
was full American, full blooded, right? Like natural
yeah, but
born.
he wasn't born here. He was born off of the continent.
Yeah, I
That's
mean that
where
is
the
true.
that's where the
So was
question
McCain.
came.
McCain wasn't born in the states either.
Yes, he wasn't born in the States, but he was born of mother and father, both Americans, and he wasn't able to be the president. You see, like there's rules to this. So the reason why Trump questioned Obama was because the math was very coincidental. So he wanted some official establishment of the timeline.
Well, didn't he already show his birth records or like his birth certificate?
I think he did eventually, but the first time he showed a video of the Lion King.
What?
Yeah, when they held Simba over the rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, I see that people have wanted to see my birth certificates and proof of my birth and all of that. So I have here to present to you guys, blah, blah, blah. And then he plays the video of uh, the monkey holding Simba over the rocks.
I never remember. I never heard of that. I've never even heard not once of that. That's crazy.
Yeah. It was the night that Trump decided to become president. What'd you say? Okay. Okay. All right. Nineteen. All right. All right. Okay. Mm, all right. No problem. Yeah, I lost my train. What were we talking about? Teeth to face ratio is wild on this rapper. GP.
Yo, I
Yeah,
had somebody knocking. I missed that last couple minutes.
no, that's so good. I don't remember what I was talking about.
Well, we were talking about the birth certificate and like him replying with the Lion King clip. I didn't know about that. That's pretty wild. Who's GP?
Yeah, you said you're talking about the birth. Did you see the comment? Motherfucker, the teeth to face ratio is wild on this rapper.
Yo. Yo.
Yeah, the internet is nuts, bro.
Yeah.
That's so funny. That
Yeah,
is
word.
hilarious.
Yo, where you at now? Are you that still at BlackRock?
Yeah, I'm at 50.
Is that whole building is owned by BlackRock?
Nah, it's BlackRock and Facebook. And like a couple little small ass ones in between there.
Yeah, I thought Facebook is leaving. They leaving here too, right?
Facebook, I don't know, actually.
Is that the
Actually,
only comment? Is this dude?
yeah, that's the only comment. I have to go ahead and reply to it too, so people where I'm not like offended. Like any comment, no comments is good. Throw that shit up there. I'm not even deleting it or nothing. That shit rock. GP. But I'm definitely gonna find out who that is later on. Now. See what his teeth to see what his teeth to face ratio is like. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like probably showing on nubs over there.
for real, man. Some people say that shit when they have like the insecurities about themselves, they project onto others.
Nah, it's all good, man.
It'll be funny
This
if
is
his
the
teeth are break.
internet.
I bet you his is worse than anybody's, bro.
It could be. It's all good. It's the internet, bro. When you get on the internet, you gonna deal with all type of people. Sometimes, a lot of times, people don't be even assholes, man. Sometimes people just do asshole shit just because they got a funny sense of humor. You know,
Yeah,
so
they're
I
trying to
always
find
tell people,
relevance. Yeah, get attention.
some people just think that shit is funny. Teeth to face ratio is wild on this one. I mean, because like sometimes somebody will leave a comment, a crazy comment, and just keep it moving. Like they're not looking to see if nobody replied. They're not, they just some people. We really live in a demented world, man. People don't need motivation to be assholes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, man. So we was talking about what again? I don't remember. I seen too much food.
Well, the birth
Oh,
certificate and then
the birth
Obama's
certificate.
reply,
Oh yeah,
which was hilarious, by the way. I think that's a fucking funny thing to reply
it
with.
is hilarious. It is hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. But that was the night that he embarrassed Trump. He actually made a fool of Trump that night. It was one of those correspondence dinners for Obama, celebrating Obama's presidency, where usually I
Yeah,
guess they're supposed to make fun of the president, but they weren't making
yeah,
fun of Obama. They were making fun of Trump that night.
yeah, yep. I
And
remember that.
Obama got it and made a bunch of jokes about Trump that night. And he essentially decided to run for the presidency after that night.
Yeah, Oh, is that the day he decided to run for president?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. That took him from civilian Trump, who was just harassing this Obama guy on the sidelines, to candidate Trump. Because Obama had said, I think he said Trump had made a comment. Obama was reading. It was one of those things where you read the tweets that people make about you.
Yeah.
Obama's off the mic movement, and he said he read a Trump tweet, and it said Obama will go down as the worst president in history or something like that. And Obama's response was, "At least I'll go down as a president."
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think of the man, honestly. Like, like I said, gas went down. That's about the only thing I can really say. Yeah, if the houses were cheaper, I didn't notice. Um,
I'll say it like this. From my perspective on the two presidencies, and that's what I think that this should be judged on only. I don't think this should be judged on anything outside because before I understand it, because there's no history on Trump, so we need to talk about something, right? But now that we have official work done, I think we should judge it by our experiences in the two presidencies, what was done in the two presidencies, and which life would you prefer to have, living under one presidency and living under the other presidency. And I just feel like under Trump's presidency, America, or at least Black America for sure, was more informed in politics. We knew all of the players and all the positions that they played. We knew their roles. We knew what the three parts of the government were. We understood finance, stock market, LLCs, businesses, loans, credit. We understood so many things in
yeah.
that time. Now we don't understand any of it. Is everything okay? Did you try to press door open, door closed? Okay, I'll see if I can get somebody to you now, okay?
Oh, word, he's stuck?
Oh, I thought I freaking muted it.
You did mute it.
So how the hell did you hear me?
Oh, no, you muted me. You didn't mute yourself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like right now, I think you muted yourself, but you didn't mute me.
Yeah, I muted myself so you could still talk, but
Oh, okay.
I'm
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's what you
I
did.
got
You did the opposite
permission.
last time.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I do find that amusing, and I find it ironic that Trump came out and like actually got elected. Hold on, I'm getting a call.
silly bit, and it's all relevant.